Hi everyone, it's Bea. In today's video, rather than talking about one of the many women of survival horror like I usually do, I thought it'd be fun to talk about the dogs of survival horror because there are a surprisingly large amount of them from a number of different survival horror games, both big and small, and who doesn't love dogs? Man's best friend has been used in survival horror games in a couple of different ways, either as vicious, zombified enemies, as companions and protectors, or in one rare case, as the creators of the universe. And so we will be starting with one of the most recognizable survival horror franchises, Silent Hill. As is with basically every survival horror game ever, the Silent Hill series of games has a great deal of dogs, which usually come in the form of terrifying, diseased, emaciated, zombie-like beasts that attack the player, as dogs in survival horror games usually do. However, Silent Hill 2 introduced a Shiba Inu named Mira, who would become a series regular and one of the most beloved characters by Silent Hill fans everywhere. Mira is first introduced to the series in the dog ending of Silent Hill 2, which could be obtained by first obtaining the dog key. The dog key can be found in a dog house located within Silent Hill and can be used to unlock the observation room in the Lakeview Hotel. The second requirement for achieving the dog ending is watching the optional videotape, which can also be found in the Lakeview Hotel. After entering the observation room, James, the protagonist of Silent Hill 2, comes across Mira, who is wearing a headset and operating controls for various computer monitors. James walks in, sees Mira, and falls to his knees saying, "So it was all your work," obviously referring to all of the unspeakable horrors he just had to endure, and Mira walks over to comfort him. After this scene is over, the ending credits play and Mira sings a little song. Well, barks a little song, while some bloopers and strange clips play on the side of the screen, as well as a montage of photos of the characters smiling. The montage ends with a few boudoir shots of Maria for good measure. The Silent Hill 2 dog ending is far from being the Silent Hill series' only joke ending to lighten up an otherwise extremely dark series of games, but it certainly is one of the most famous examples of this kind of ending. Mira ended up being so popular that she would appear in several other Silent Hill games as well. The next time we see Mira is in the UFO ending of Silent Hill Origins, another joke ending where this time Mira and an alien friend of hers abduct Travis, the game's protagonist. This ending can only be achieved while playing the game for a second time and attempting to unlock Hotel Room 502 after finding the door's key. There's also an unlockable costume for Travis called Daredevil, which looks like Mira as well, which can be unlocked by completing the whole game without saving. We see Mira once again in Silent Hill Shattered Memories UFO ending, where Cheryl Mason transforms into Mira during a therapy session and exclaims that her mother was a bitch. You know, like a female dog. This ending can be achieved only on a second playthrough as well by dialing the United Fruitcake Outlet's phone number, which can be seen on a billboard in the game, after which you have to photograph all 13 UFOs in the game. And the last major appearance made by Mira is in Silent Hill Book of Memories, where she can be found in the game's Earth Dungeon. Her dog tags can also be found in the game, and the player can also wear a mask of Mira's face as an accessory. Mira can also be seen digging in the sand in the game's joke ending. Mira was a creation of Team Silent and was first given her name on the inside cover of the Japanese version of Silent Hill 2's soundtrack. Mira ended up becoming such a staple of the Silent Hill franchise, as Mira is credited as playing the guitar in the song Waiting for You in the Silent Hill 4 soundtrack, as well as credited as being the creator of the screenplay of Silent Hill Downpour's first trailer. So, needless to say, she's a pretty big deal to both the series and maintaining the legacy of the beloved Team Silent. Though it's been many years since Silent Hill Book of Memories was released, Mira has not been forgotten. A picture of Mira can also be seen in one of Midwich Elementary School's desks that can be located in the Dead by Daylight Silent Hill chapter, which was released in 2020, and the official Konami shop has been selling merch of Mira lately as well. So, fingers crossed that her dog ending will be included in the Silent Hill 2 remake that's scheduled to come out soon. I'd also like to mention, since I thought this was a bit of interesting info about the dogs of Silent Hill, Silent Hill 1, 3, and 4 all include dog enemies, but Silent Hill 2 does not. Silent Hill 2's only dog is Mira. I just thought that was kinda cute. Shiba Inus, like Mira, are also known for being high-spirited, high-energy dogs with playful personalities and a tendency to be pretty independent. So independent, actually, that they end up creating all of the events of Silent Hill 2 like they're playing the world's cruelest game of The Sims. Moving on to the next franchise, we will be talking about the dogs of Resident Evil. Zombie dog enemies have been a staple of the Resident Evil franchise since the very first Resident Evil game was released in 1996. These dogs, much like the ones in Silent Hill, are also terrifying, decaying, and vicious animals. There's actually quite a bit of lore surrounding the dog enemies in the Resident Evil franchise, the most important being that there is actually a notable difference between zombie dogs, which are considered to be any dog which is infected with NET virus, and Cerberuses. Cerberuses are a specific type of dog utilized by Umbrella as bioorganic weapons. Zombie dogs can be any breed, but Cerberuses are always Doberman Pinschers, which are a breed known for being powerful, muscular, intelligent, and loyal. Doberman Pinschers are also usually bred to be guard dogs, which makes Umbrella's choice to use this breed for their project make all the more sense. In Resident Evil 4, the zombie dogs are called colmillos, which translates to fangs in Spanish. This iteration of zombie dog is infected with Las Plagas, which causes worm-like plaga to shoot out of these dogs' backs while they're attacking Leon, exposing their weak spot. When I was a kid, I actually used to call these dogs spaghetti dogs because of the way the plagas look when they're coming out of their backs. Resident Evil 4 is the only game in the Resident Evil franchise which includes a friendly dog which Leon can save from a bear trap at the beginning of the game. This dog later helps him in the first El Gigante fight. This dog doesn't technically have a name, so it's oftenly just called the "Hey, it's that dog" dog. However, I've mentioned before, in my last video actually, that this dog is thought to be Huey from Haunting Ground, another favorite survival horror game of mine, which we will talk about later on in this video. The "Hey, it's that dog" is thought to be a white wolf, at least based on appearances and the fact that in both the original and the remake it howls, but Leon does call it a dog, and the fact that it's thought that this is meant to be Huey might point to it being more like a wolf dog than an actual wolf, which is a breed created by putting one domestic dog and one wolf together. The domestic dog in this situation is more often than not a German Shepherd, and the resulting wolf dogs are known for being aggressive and unpredictable. The zombie dogs in Resident Evil 5 are also unique to other dogs in the Resident Evil franchise. These ones are called Adulae, which were bioorganic weapons created by Tricell, a pharmaceutical corporation under the control of Wesker. The Adulae are African hunting dogs or African wild dogs infected with plaga similar to the colmillos from Resident Evil 4. But rather than having spaghetti noodles, the Adulae can split themselves in half, revealing a gigantic mouth filled with teeth. Ew! On a less gross note, African wild dogs are a species of wild canine which is native to sub-Saharan Africa, which are known for having extremely close bonds with the other dogs within their pack and are one of the most unique dogs I have ever seen, with round mouse-like ears and spots which have earned them the nickname painted dogs. Now that we've gotten past the two biggest names in survival horror, we can move on to some of the more obscure titles, starting with my personal favorite, friend of the channel, Haunting Ground. Haunting Ground is the first game we will talk about with an actual dog companion who I mentioned earlier named Huey. Huey is a 4-year-old white German Shepherd who is the companion to the game's protagonist, Fiona Belly, who I've made a whole video about before if you're interested. Huey can do all sorts of things, including attacking enemies by biting them to protect Fiona, growling at enemies to scare them away, fetching items, and helping Fiona complete puzzles. Huey also serves as Fiona's only source of comfort after being kidnapped and brought to a terrifying castle which she must escape with only Huey's help. Huey was originally added to the game, as I mentioned in my last video about how Resident Evil 4 and Haunting Ground are connected, because developers were worried that people, well, male players actually, wouldn't want to play an entire game as a defenseless female protagonist, and so to boost interest in the game, they added a dog companion. Fiona first meets Huey after looking out of one of Belly Castle's many windows to see him lying on the ground below, tied with a tight wire to a tree. Fiona rushes down and unties him, and she encourages him to leave and try not to get caught next time, but it's not long before she sees Huey again as he rushes in to save her from one of the game's enemies. The two then become very close as they've basically rescued one another. After Huey rushes to Fiona's rescue, Fiona remembers finding a dog tag during the scene at the beginning of the game with Huey written on it, since Huey had already been in the castle for who knows how long. The dog collar had been found in Debilitus's kitchen, Debilitus being one of the game's enemies, implying that he had been the one to capture Huey either from outside or a nearby town and bring him to the castle and just kind of abandon him tied to a tree. Huey is controlled by the player, and Fiona can give him a pretty large amount of commands like go, come on, wait, sit, stay, or shake, just like a real dog, and Fiona's input can actually do a great deal to improve his responsiveness to her commands and strengthen their relationship. By pressing right, Fiona can praise Huey by telling him that he's a good boy, which in turn makes Huey perform certain actions more frequently and successfully. Pressing right can also allow Fiona to pet Huey, which helps his stamina to regenerate. Fiona can also scold Huey for doing things he shouldn't, which helps Huey to become more obedient. Obedience helps quite a bit since Huey is prone to wandering off. Building his ability to listen to Fiona will make sure that he will come to help her if she's being attacked. There are also other ways Fiona can build her relationship with Huey, like playing fetch with a ball or visiting the training ground. Huey is so integral to the game that having him die results in an immediate game over, and upon finishing the game, a room is unlocked which features a minigame called Dog's Best Friend, which lets the player control Huey directly rather than Fiona in a number of fights against the game's different enemies. Typically, when playing Haunting Ground, Fiona's thoughts about what's going on are conveyed to the player through comments she writes in the game's menu. However, on the hard difficulty, these comments are made by Huey instead, which includes such gems as bark, growl, you saved me, now it's my turn to help you, I won't forget this, and whenever I get pollen on my nose, I can't stop sneezing. Wachoo! Makes it hard to snag these flowers, which is so stinking cute. It is also unfortunately possible for Fiona to mistreat Huey if the player wishes her to do so for some reason. But there are repercussions for this, like a message that appears saying you are obviously not a dog person. No kidding. Another fun fact about Huey, which makes me love him even more, is that like all other characters in Haunting Ground, Huey's movements were created by motion capture of a real German Shepherd. Huey also has 3 different costumes which can be used in the game, the first of that being a white German Shepherd, which is the default, which makes him more loyal and obedient to Fiona. The second is the brown German Shepherd, which makes him more aggressive but more difficult to control and can be unlocked after finishing the first playthrough of the game. And finally, there is the stuffed toy costume, which makes Huey both invincible and adorable, and can be unlocked after completing the game on hard mode. If you've ever owned or played a PS2 game, which I'm assuming you have since you're watching this video, Huey is also the icon for Haunting Ground's memory card slot. Finally, as I mentioned before, Huey is also thought to be the same dog that Leon saves from the bear trap at the beginning of Resident Evil 4, which I talked about at length in my last video, but just to quickly recap, both Haunting Ground and Resident Evil 4 were created by Capcom in 2005, and Haunting Ground's script was originally proposed as a potential version of Resident Evil 4, which led to several aspects of this version ending up in the Resident Evil 4 we all know and love, including a white dog which helps Leon fight enemies. This would also mean that Huey appears in the Resident Evil 4 remake as well. One last thing before we move on to our final dog that I'll be discussing in this video, Huey, as I mentioned before, is a white German Shepherd, which is a breed of dog that is often used in military guard, search, or police service due to their ability to learn a great deal of commands, execute tasks, as well as their loyalty and ability to protect and defend their owners. This devotion and loyalty can really be seen in Huey's relationship with Fiona, as he vows to protect her just as she protected him when she saved him from the cruel fate of being tied by the neck with wire to a tree and left to die basically. Though German Shepherds can be quite aggressive and have a notoriously mean bite, this comes in handy for attacking enemies and protecting Fiona from danger. Our last dog of survival horror is Brown, the Labrador Retriever, which helps Rule of Rose's protagonist Jennifer by sniffing out hidden items. Brown, like Huey, is an integral part of the game. He was found by Jennifer when he was just a puppy, and he was Jennifer's best friend, or sometimes her only friend, especially during the events of the game. Wendy, Jennifer's supposed friend, even tried to leverage Brown against her, commanding her to get rid of the dog so that Wendy would be her best friend instead, but the bond between Jennifer and Brown was far too strong, and Jennifer turned this command down. Wendy didn't take this too kindly and decided that if she couldn't have her, Brown couldn't either, and he must be killed, which does end up being the case, unfortunately. However, that's not the end of Brown, as in Jennifer's dream world, he is found still alive and bound by rope to the ceiling. After rescuing him, Brown accompanies Jennifer throughout the game, as I mentioned before, to help her sniff out hidden items, which is an extremely useful ability, as his help in finding key items is necessary to progress in the game. Brown, like Huey, is more than just a helping hand. He also provides Jennifer with much needed comfort and emotional support with a button just for petting and hugging him. However, unlike Huey, Brown cannot attack enemies, but he can distract them, allowing for Jennifer to get a few hits in while they're focusing on Brown, or to escape if need be. The Rule of Rose is an exceptionally dark and depressing survival horror game. Brown can provide a bit of relief from the heaviness of the plot with a number of costumes the player can choose from, including one that turns Brown into a chair, a crab, a stuffed toy, and even a gothic Lolita costume which matches one of Jennifer's unlockable outfits. The stuffed toy and the gothic Lolita ones I totally get, but a chair? A chair. I also think it's important to mention that Labrador Retrievers are best known for being very outgoing, friendly, affectionate, and gentle, especially with kids, which is very fitting for a game about reckoning with traumatic childhood memories. In remembrance of her beloved Brown, Jennifer even says, "The nights were lonely and cold, but you'd always greet me in the morning. Only you greeted me warmly. Thank you so," which makes me want to cry. I know I haven't covered Rule of Rose on this channel, and since it's gained a pretty substantial cult following in recent years, I decided it was best to leave this one to those who love it most, at least for now. But I did want to point out how I think that Brown's existence as Jennifer's companion, both in the dream world version of her childhood memories and her actual childhood, really goes to show how important having a pet can be in the lives of people, children included, when they don't have anyone else to lean on. I mean, they are called man's best friend for a reason, or woman's best friend, or kid's best friend. They're everyone's best friend. I mean, I'm a cat person, and I still get how dogs can be useful, especially in the realm of survival horror, as both a companion and a protector. Dogs provide unconditional love even when others, even the people who should, do not, and that's probably why people love them so much, Jennifer and Fiona included. I also just wanted to briefly talk about how I think it's particularly interesting that in both of the survival horror games I've mentioned with a female protagonist, Haunting Ground and Rule of Rose, that the dogs in these games are so integral to both the plot and the girls' abilities to not only survive the horrors that they're enduring, but also to remain relatively calm despite everything going on. It's acknowledged that Jennifer from Rule of Rose experiences PTSD, or post-traumatic stress disorder, related to her horrific childhood experiences at Rose Garden Orphanage. Fiona from Haunted Ground also experiences a great deal of trauma during her time being held captive at Belly Castle, which results in her entering a panic mode, which presents similarly to a panic disorder and often becomes frozen in a state of shock and fear when in the presence of danger or enemies. In the cases of both of these women, their dogs not only help them to escape their current situations, protect them from enemies or even themselves, but also to help with their emotional trauma, similar to how emotional support animals would function for someone with PTSD, anxiety, or a panic disorder, for example. I think it's very interesting that the most common emotional support animal is a dog, and two of the most common emotional support dog breeds are Labrador Retrievers, like Brown from Rule of Rose, and German Shepherds like Huey from Hunting Ground. I'm sure that's probably just a coincidence, but I thought it was interesting nonetheless. Needless to say, the dogs of survival horror come in many different shapes and forms and exist with many different purposes, from destruction to protection and even to creation. In the case of Man's Best Friend though, I think it's pretty apparent that their inclusion in survival horror games runs very deep and they've become a real staple of the genre over the years. Let me know down below in the comments if there are any dogs I may have missed in this video, and if you'd be interested in a cats of survival horror video as well. Honestly, I'll probably just make that one anyways, even if you say no. Okay, so that's all I have for you today. So as always, thank you for watching. I hope you all have a good day or night or whatever time it is wherever you are, and I will see you all next time.